Perhaps you have heard the story of Moses split the seawater in two so that the caravan of Jews could cross, then drowned the Egyptian pursuers. And that this is a famous miracle in the Catholic Bible. But how true is it that a person can split seawater in half? Is there a helping hand of the supernatural in this? We will help you decipher this story in today's video. Indeed, this story has been widely spread over thousands of years. In many literary and cinematic works, it is also mentioned as a power of God, expressed through the character of Moses. Moses was a leader, prophet, and proclamation of the law according to the Catholic Bible. He was the one who was called by God to lead the Jewish people out of slavery in Egypt. According to the biblical record, Moses was the son of a Jewish woman. While the Pharaoh issues orders to kill Jewish boys, Moses is accidentally adopted to become a member of the Egyptian royal family. After growing up, he was called by God to carry out a mission to free the Israelites from slavery, cross the Red Sea, then enter the desert and return to the Promised Land. During his pilgrimage, Moses borrowed the power of God to perform many miracles, and one of them was to split the seawater in two, so that the people could pass through the bottom of the sea and reach the other shore. As soon as he got ashore, the Egyptian pursuer had just arrived, and at that time he stretched out his hands over the sea, closing the wall of water to drown the entire army. These miracles only exist in the fictional world, but the strange thing is that oceanographers have found a lot of chariots, horse bones and human bones beneath the Red Sea. One of the many mineralized remains found at the site of the old caravan of Jews crossing the sea has been examined by Stockholm University osteologists, and proven to be the right femur of a tall man about 165 to 170 centimeters. Therefore, there is a theory that this is a sign of crossing the sea by the trail of the ancients, or maybe it is the army of Pharaoh who drowned in the sea while chasing the Jewish group. In the light of science, Dr. Parker at the American Oceanographic Center also sought to explain this myth. He believes that it is the special tidal regime, combined with Moses's understanding of geography and astronomy, that are the key to a bold plan. In addition, the above story has also been the subject of many epic films. The most famous are The Ten Commandments, directed by Cecil B. DeMille in 1956, or Exodus, Gods and Kings, by director Ridley Scott, released in 2014. All refer to this miracle. Director Scott said in the film, Exodus, Gods and Kings, the story of split water, he exploited in terms of scientific, instead of seeing it as a power of God. Accordingly, Scott explained that the ability to split seawater is due to an earthquake that leads to a tsunami, and before a tsunami hits, coastal waters often recede very far away, leaving a shallow seabed. However, the above explanation has a problem. The time for the water to recede before the tsunami hit was only about 10 to 15 minutes, too little for the entire Jewish caravan to be able to cross the temporary shallow seabed. Moreover, Moses could not have known the earthquake and tsunami were coming, unless God told him. Of course, this interpretation of both science and magic is quite suitable for an epic movie like Exodus, Gods and Kings. However, scientists have many other explanations based on nature to be able to form a temporary path under the Red Sea. Accordingly, the key point, as Dr. Parker once mentioned, is the tides, a natural phenomenon calculated by Moses, coordinated with his daring plan. With this, Mr. Moses can fully predict when the road will appear. In fact, there are many places in the world where the tide can be at its lowest, revealing a strip of land on the seafloor, forming a path for several hours. And then at high tide, the road quickly disappears. In 1798, French Emperor Napoleon Bonaparte and a group of his soldiers rowed across the Gulf of Suez. The northern part of the Red Sea is divided into two branches by the Sinai Peninsula, forming two bays: Suez to the west and Aqaba to the east. This is also said to be the place where Moses and his people crossed the Red Sea. Here, at low tide, formed a shallow strip of land about 1.6 kilometers long, exposed below the seabed, but then the tide suddenly rose, causing many of Napoleon's soldiers to drown. According to the Old Testament book of Exodus, the Jews camped twice before crossing the sea. The last time was on the western shore of the Gulf of Suez. At that time, the pursuit of Pharaoh's army was approaching. One could see the dust clouds caused by the convoy from a great distance. This was another important sign for Moses, allowing him to calculate how long it would take for the Egyptian army to reach the shore. Furthermore, Moses had lived near wild lands for a long time, so he knew which place on the coast to choose so that the caravan could cross the Red Sea at low tide. He was knowledgeable in astronomy, observing the night sky and using methods dating back to antiquity. He was able to predict tidal activity based on the position and degree of roundness and waning of the moon. In contrast, Pharaoh and his advisors lived along the Nile, which connects to the Mediterranean, where the tides are very low, only a few centimeters. As a result, Pharaoh's army probably knew very little about the tides and were unaware of the danger they faced. Guessing when the tide would be low, when the strip of land below would appear and how long it would last, and when it would suddenly disappear, Moses could well have a plan to help the Jewish horde escape. Therefore, he chose the full moon day for the sea crossing. That is the most suitable time for the group to have more time to cross the sea. At the same time, this is also the time when the tide is lower than usual, and the high tide is also higher than usual, suitable for engulfing the Pharaoh's army. Accurate timing is the key to perfect planning. Moses had to calculate that as soon as the last Jewish people crossed the strip of land under the sea, the tide would immediately rise. At that time, the Egyptian pursuers also followed closely behind and fell into the trap set up. If the cavalry and chariots were to catch up before the high tide, Moses would have prepared a number of tactics to delay. Conversely, if the pursuers arrived after high tide, many would have crossed the sea safely, and Moses was able to send some of his men back to the seabed to lure the pursuers to ensure that their opponents were destroyed. However, the Bible mentions another decisive effect, which is strong winds from the east that blow throughout the night and push the water to the sides. Ocean physicists say that winds blowing over shallow currents often push more water away than when blowing over deep pools. Thus, this random gust of wind blowing throughout the night would help lower the water level even further, providing further opportunity for the success of Moses's plan. For centuries, it was believed that the appearance of this wind was the Holy Spirit who intervened to help the people. However, it is not clear whether Moses was aware of the advantage the wind brought. But one thing is for sure, he views tidal forecasting as the deciding factor. When Napoleon and his soldiers almost drowned in 1798 at the northernmost point of the Gulf of Suez, the water level at low tide was about 1.5 to 1.8 meters, or up to 2.7 to 3 meters if the wind blows in the right direction. However, according to the evidence, sea level in the time of Moses was higher than when Napoleon crossed the sea. As a result, the Gulf of Suez will extend further to the north and the tidal range will also be larger. And if this is true, then when the tide is high, the wall of water can completely engulf the Egyptian army as recorded in the Bible. If all the progress of the implementation of Moses's plan is as the above theories, he indeed deserves to be the great tide forecaster in history, not just a miracle of God. Maybe God created a strong wind that blew all night to help the plan be more complete. But according to the evidence, it is clear that much of the plan outlined by Moses was based on his profound knowledge and experience. The entire story was written by Dr. Parker in the book, The Power of the Sea: Tsunamis, Storm Surges, Rogue Waves and Our Quest to Predict Disasters. Given our suspicions about an ancient advanced civilization, it is not surprising that Moses possessed such profound knowledge. What about your views? If you agree or have other thoughts, please share them with us in the comment section below. For now, bye and see you in the next video.